Hello, regular knife people. Welcome back to another regular guy in this regular guy knife channel show. Uh, so, you know, today's the day. Today's the day we put the fork in the rat too, and we call it done. I thought what I'd do is I would cover the hardware mods first, then splice in the little bit of the footage I have remaining here for the making of the scales. And then I'll bring it back, and then we'll do the final assembly and check it out. So we've got the scales here, the back spacer that we made, blade we've acid washed and then resharpened, crowned the spine on it, modified the liners for a skinnier pattern there, and then those have been stone washed as well. And then over here we have the hardware. We'll be reusing the stock center spacers here, but we're going to be putting in a new thumb stud, which it's a lot smaller than the stock thumb stud, and it's only single-sided. So my plan is to give it a light texture on the top surface here, and then I'll color it with the rest of the stainless steel hardware. We've got some new thicker bronze washers that we should be able to replace the bronze washer slash Teflon washer combo that's stock on these knives. We have a titanium deep carry pocket clip. This one only uses two of the screws, which is fine because I haven't drilled the scales for the clip screws yet. And then we have a stainless steel hardware set. Aside from just the coloring and the texturing of the thumb stud there, I thought, because they sent me two pivot screws in that screw set, what I thought here is I would do a little carving on the pivot screw. I would church it up just a little bit, and essentially we're just gonna, we're gonna die commit. I'm gonna score some deeper lines with using a thin cutoff wheel and my rotary disc, and then we'll file it out with some needle files. I thought I'd give it kind of a floret or a more flower petal or flower, design to it. I mean, I got it in my head. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring lines down from the tip of all the points there on the Torx, and then I'll deepen them out and round them off, and then give a little bit of notches down here on the edge, just to give it the effect of like flower petals there. And then, if I don't like it, we'll just go back to the other one. We've got another one to use. So yeah, so that's where we're at today. We're going to get this project finished out, get it out to who I'm giving the knife to, so he can get it in his pocket, and we'll be done, and we'll move on to some future projects. So yeah, here we are, and I'll bring you back once I'm all set up here with how I'm going to have my setup for carving that pivot screw, and I'll bring you back when we're ready to go. All right, and we're back. So I'm set up, ready to go. I marked it out with the Dicom and my scribe here, and essentially I just scratched out little points here radiating out from the tips, from the outer tips there of the Torx drive. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my rotary tool here with a real thin cutoff disc. I'm going to then score out the lines, making them deeper, right? And then from there I'll then move on to my needle files. Just a quick note on the needle files here. These are Hubsan brand. It's the same company that makes those hardness testing file sets you see on all the knife making channels. I think they were like $35 for the set, but they're of a much higher quality than your average cheap set of needle files that you can pick up at your big box store. These things will actually cut, and it's one of those items where I'd rather spend the extra couple of dollars just to kind of alleviate the aggravation. All those, oh, excuse me, those diamond coated, they don't. I'm not sure what they work on, but this isn't where they work. They don't do a very good job cutting. They leave a very rough finish. The cheap needle file sets, the like $10 sets you can pick up at the Home Depot or your local Lowe's, they don't cut. They do, but not on something this small. When you're working in the micro as opposed to the macro, you need a really good sharp needle file, or you're just asking for hours of aggravation. Um, do yourself a favor if you're going to be doing any kind of mods. These are an absolutely invaluable tool. I used them, in the process of making the scales. I use them for enlarging holes. I use them quite a bit in for modding. And I think it's well worth spending a couple of extra bucks and at least picking up a decent set of these guys. They'll definitely prevent a lot of aggravation for just a couple of extra bucks. So yeah, so I'm not going to keep videoing through the whole me cutting it out. Again, I'm just going to use a real thin cut-off disc just to kind of cut some slots, some trenches here to give to guide my needle files, and then I'll get at them with the needle files. I'll bring you back once I've got it all filed and carved out and then cleaned up, and I'll show it to you here before I go into doing I go and what I'll do then is I'll use some various grit coated bobs just to clean it up and to soften the edges out a little bit, and I'll show you that. All right, so I'll bring you back when we're all done. All right, and we're back. So these screws all had a fairly good finish on it. Normally I try to hit them with like 1,000 grit felt bob to clean them up before I go ahead and color them. These screws were already in pretty good shape. We've got the see if I can get this out here. I don't want to touch it with my fingers. All these have been degreased with the with acetone here, but here is the I don't know, slightly worked and carved pivot screw. I'm not 100% sure on it yet. We'll see. We'll see after I've colored it. I've got them all set up here in my jig. I've showed you this before in the smock pimpeting video, but we have the 4 center spacers. We have the thumb stud, which I did go ahead and texture. We've got the pivot screw. We've got the 2 clip screws, and then we've got the 8 body screws here. And then again, we're just going to go ahead and heat them up with the butane torch here. I'm going to turn all the lights out and make it easier. And actually, I'm going to take this out and do it under a window here, natural light. I think that's the easiest way to test the color. We're going for a little bit darker, trying to achieve a little bit darker bluish purple color this time. So we'll have to heat them up to where we start seeing red. As opposed to like the orange that we did for the straw color there in the smock, and so we'll have to get these a little bit hotter. Again, it's just a piece of metal that I bent and welded up here and drilled some holes just to lay it all out to make it easier. Because like I've said in the past, it's a lot easier to heat color if you do it in either low light or natural lighting. It's a lot easier to see the color transition of those screws. So I just did this to make it a little bit easier, so I'm not fiddling with little screws and tweezers, in the semi-dark here. The other thing is here, I'm going to start experimenting here in the future. Is I'm going to preheat these with a toaster oven. I found a toaster oven that'll hit 550 degrees, which is the dark purple range, or dark bluish purple range. And this thing being all metal, I should be able to just set these screws up, throw them into my toaster oven, and crank the heat up, and we'll see. So hopefully soon look for a video. I've also got a not related to the hardware here, but I do have a heated stir plate on order for doing the acid etching. It should accelerate the process and get a much deeper etch on those stainless steels that are like, especially like liners that are real hard to get a good acid etch on. And so hopefully we'll do a video on that here in the future. Once I've experimented with it a little bit. I'm not sure if it's worth, you know, if juice is worth the squeeze. I got one on Amazon for like 45-ish bucks, and so we'll cover that, and I'll do just a straight acid etch video, you know, once I've got the process down and see how well that stir plate works. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these screws colored. When I bring you back, it'll be with all the hardware and the components and ready to go, and for the final assembly. So after this video, I'm going to splice, or after this cut here, I'll splice in, you know, what little footage I've got left of the actual making of the scales, and then I'll bring you back and we'll do a final assembly. All right, I'll see you in a few. All right, and we're back. So we've got the liners ground. Okay, you can see here with the if we look at the original scale here, you can see how we've got that hump, right? We've ground that hump out. So if we look here, we can see how much of the scale material, you know, that we'll be removing when we make our own scales. So these will have that skinny pattern. We'll remove that hump that's there in the center, and I think it should give it a nice look. So I thought for these scales, we had a couple of options. We have either this one here, which is a layered black and green micarta, and then we had the natural micarta. I think I'm going to go with the black and green because I'm going to be we're going to be making a back spacer out of orange G10, and then we're going to be doing liners on the scales here of orange G10, and I just thought that orange G10 would look better with the color of the scale material. Once we've added the scales and the scale liner, it's going to be considerably thicker than what the stock scales were, which is fine because I always thought that the Rat 2 was kind of a thin knife. But unfortunately, kind of the thing that we run into then is the pocket clip screws. You know, we either got to find longer screws or we're going to have to grind the scales thinner. I did pick up a MX Gear pocket clip, deep carry pocket clip for this guy, and it did come with longer stock screws, and so that's going to be the limiting factor on how actually thick we can make this knife. Everything else I can countersink, not an issue. But with the pocket clip screws not being countersunk, that's going to be kind of the limiting factor. I do have a big assortment of screws, and maybe I'll dig through those and see if I can find, you know, some screws that fit, you know, some longer ones, and maybe we'll be able to make it longer. But yeah, that'll be the determining factor on how thick we end up leaving these guys. So we are going to line the scales. Not just for aesthetics, but just to streamlines the process a little bit. All these screws are countersunk, and for the most part, you only have to get the countersink deep enough so that those screws catch on the spacers. The only caveat to that being the pivot. It is a one-sided pivot. And the countersink has to go to a specific depth, or else we'll mess up the the clearances of the knife. We won't get a good smooth action. It'll end up being, if we end up making the pivot just a little, you know, not too shallow or not deep enough on the countersink, then what'll end up happening is we'll have some exposed threads. We won't have the pivot won't pass completely through, so there'll be some exposed threads on the bolt, and there's always a risk that the washer falls down into that space. Or what'll end up happening is the knife will end up being wider at the front than at the back. So what'll happen is the action will be nice and smooth until you get to a certain point where it hits that kind of wedge, and then it'll slow down. You know, it'll catch right there. So So getting that front countersink depth is pivotal, if you excuse the dad pun here, to getting the action of this knife right. I've mic'd it, and it is nearly the same thickness, or the same depth as the thickness of these liners. So what we're going to do is we'll drill the scales full depth, and then we'll glue the liner on, and then drill the liners for the whole pattern, and we'll essentially be using, you know, that will provide our countersink to get the screws to the correct depth, to just that liner. So it's going to, you know, yes, it's going to be more sanding, more grinding, but it's eliminating some of that real fiddly, precise, depthing or depth drilling, of the scales. For drill bits, like I've said before, it's fine to go cheap on certain tools, but any tools that are of a cutting style, like needle files, countersinks, drill bits, spend a couple extra bucks. It'll save you in headaches down the road. It's just not worth trying to save money on these kind of tools. For drill bits, I like the Milwaukee Cobalts. They do equally well in softer hard metals. They do well in brass. They do really good with pretty much anything that you throw at them. These bits drill well. They're expensive. I think it's like 30-ish bucks for this set. But if you watch the Home Depot, you watch your Lowe's or your Ace, anywhere else that carries Milwaukee brand tools, they do come up, on various sales quite often. So I do prefer the Milwaukee drill bits, or at least these Cobalt drill bits. I'm not a big fan of the gold titanium nitride coated bits. I don't think they work nearly as well as people think they do. And once you sharpen that bit, you've lost that coating. It is what it is. I like the Milwaukee bits. So yeah, we're gonna be doing the green and black the green and black dyed micarta scales with the orange G10 for the liners on those scales, and then we'll be doing an orange G10 backspacer. I've been kind of waffling back and forth on how to videotape this process, because I obviously have to go outside to the shop area to do the cutting and the grinding. So I guess what I'll do is I'll trace these guys. I'll get the whole set, for at least for the making everything match up. Then I'll do a rough cutout, and then I'll bring you back to take a look at where we're at before we move on to the final grinding and the shaping. I think I'll bring you back on the spacer here when I go to set up the inside cut and how I mark that out, just in case you were wondering. But yeah, this is nearly as slightly thicker than what we need it to be, so I'll have to take it down a little bit on the back spacers, because it's a critical clearance area. I find start out with a much bigger piece than you need, and then grind back to the shape. It just inevitably what ends up, we're gonna have to thickness sand this, and I don't have like a fancy thickness sanding machine, and there's various ways you can do it. What I'll do is I'll do the majority of the thickness sanding on my disc sander, and then I'll finish up with a flat surface and a piece of sandpaper, and I'll essentially lap it to final size. For that, you just use any kind of fairly flat surface. You can use your countertops if you have granite countertops. You can use a piece of glass or a piece of mirror. What I use is let's see if I got one handy here. Not so much, but it'll be in the video. I got a good friend of mine, my brother from another mother. He's a kitchen designer, and so he always has like remnants and samples of granite and stone countertops and stuff, and those things are pretty damn flat. And so he always gifts those things to me, and I love using them for like lapping. When we get towards the hardware, I did order a set of bronze bushings for this knife, or bronze washers for this knife, so that we can eliminate that double stack washer, that bronze and Teflon washer combo. We're going to get rid of that. The washers I found were just slightly thicker than they needed to be, so we'll have to lap them into the to the final size. But we'll get into that with the hardware video. So from here, I'm going to start laying out my scales. Essentially, it's just, you know, picking two holes that I can then put hardware through to attach it to the scale material, tracing it out, doing a rough cut on my bandsaw, then putting the whole thing together, and then grinding it to the or sanding it to the final size, and using the scales as the or the liner, sorry, as the final guide. So we'll get started on that, and then I'll bring you back once we have the scales roughed in, and show you where we're at. Just a quick note, to make layout of your scales easier, I find gluing the actual liners to the scale material with just a couple of drops of super glue, right? And then clamping it. I'm using just some cheap ass spring clamps here, but then clamping that scale or that liner to the scale material and letting it dry makes life so much easier for laying these things out. Like I said, just use a couple of drops of super glue. It doesn't take much, and then we glue the metal down to we glue the liners down to the scale material. It'll make it so much easier to go ahead and lay everything out and lay your holes out once that super glue is dry, without having to kind of hold it in place. And then it's just an easy task of getting a razor blade under between the two and popping it loose. And then, since we'll sand the inside of the scale material anyways, to give it a tooth when we glue it up to the liner, it's not a big deal having any kind of super glue residue on there, and it cleans up with just a bit of acetone. So yeah, and instead of trying to hold those two together while I mark everything out, just go ahead and super glue the two together, and it'll make life a hell of a lot easier. All right, and we'll see you soon. All right, and we're back. All right, so we got everything done here. Hardware's done, hard blued, everything. All right, we're done. We're ready to start putting this thing back together again here. Yeah. So I'm going to use a bit of Loctite. This isn't going to a guy that's going to take his knife apart probably all that often. So I think he would benefit more from a little bit of Loctite. Just kind of hold things together. First things first, though, we're going to get this thumb stud on. For that, I am going to use a little bit of red Loctite, just because it's never coming off, and it's a tiny little screw. You'd hate to lose it. So a little bit of this red gel Loctite here. I think I got more of it on my fingers than I did on the screw. I'm sure we got it on the right side. Sorry if I'm moving that. I had a camera here, but it's such a tiny little screw. Alright. I'll get that tightened down. Good and tight. I guess a T5. Yep. Alright, that guy ain't going anywhere. Alright, so we got the thumb stud as well as a bunch of Loctite here. Let's get that. And we can go ahead and start getting this guy together. Do the clip side first. So I only drilled for this particular pocket clip, and I did not drill for a lanyard hole. I don't think I need it. I kind of wanted to keep these scales, you know, kind of extra hole free here. So when doing a bunch of little tiny screws like this, I just find it easier to put some Loctite on a surface and kind of just dip the screw in than it is to try to balance it in my sausage fingers there while getting a little Loctite on it. Let's see here. Our first barrel. This will be the rear one. Yeah, these tiny little knife parts, man, they are not any fun. I like the rats, but boy, I think they could have eliminated a center spacer or two. I think they got just one too many. So I'm gonna leave them guys a little bit loose until I get everything lined up, then I'll tighten them all up. Get the front one here. And that's just because as hard as I try, you know, my $70 Harbor Freight belt sander and 30-year-old rusty drill press are not necessarily precision instruments, so a little adjustment has to be made. Alright. Get the front one in there. Let's get make sure it's lining up. Yep, no problem there. Now we get the last two put on. So these have kind of a, I don't know, a ribbed for her pleasure side on these, and I think that's the end that's originally kind of press fit into the liner. But once you pull those out with, say, like a pair of pliers, you know, you just kind of rock them out. Then it doesn't matter which end you put in. They don't stick in anymore. So I just do whatever. Scale. Go ahead and get that pocket clip on. I decided not to do anything. I was thinking about anodizing the pocket clip, or at least flaming it. But you know, I kind of like the color. Just that dark gray. It matches the. I kind of like how it matches already. So. It matches the color of the liners and the blade, so I just don't think I'm gonna do that. It's not as deep a carry as the MX clip, but you know, it's a bit smaller. And when I get this on here, I think I'll see if I can dig out that MX clip. I'll show you the. Am I missing it? Yeah, I am. Yeah, so we're getting into that where I thought where the screw might be just a little short. If I can get it to catch a couple threads, there. A couple threads. Don't worry about it going anywhere. No, I did not. Actually, let me loosen up this other side just a little bit. The clip does have a little bit of preload to it, which can make it a little more difficult to get in. Lynch generally gives you a longer screw to get that clip started, but yeah, it ain't gonna go. I don't think these are gonna be long enough. I don't know if any of my other screws I've got for this thing are, but we'll take a look here real quick. Yeah, one of the screw sets was probably not for this knife. In fact, the original screw set that I had you know, flamed in the as part of the video. They yeah, they they're too big. They didn't fit the hardware, so I'm gonna have to go back and leave a message, because that's yeah. I'm gonna take a little bend out of this clip here and see if I can't get her in. And that's all it is. It's just needs to have a little bit of the bend taken out of the clip here. It doesn't need to be so damn tight. So let's see if I can do that here. Sorry, you can't see it, but I'm just chucking it into my vise here in my lap and bending the clip away a little bit. Here, take some of it out. Take some of that tension out. Help it sit a little bit flatter on the scale. I guess I could have put this thing together as a trial run here before I started the video, so you wouldn't have to sit through this, but you know, it's only fair to show you what didn't work as well as what did, right? So let's see here. Is that gonna catch? Nope. That's exactly what I thought was gonna happen. Alright, so the screws are just a little, my scales are just a little too thick to get that pocket clip on there. Let me check out my other clip and see what kind of screws came with it. The MX screws, which I think I've already got out and tried. Actually, no, this is the MX clip. The other clip I had was a PacSun's clip. And I'm already trying those screws too, so is life. Alright, I'll have to hunt down some longer screws. You know, I'm not gonna hold this damn video up for the damn pocket clip, man. I'm gonna get this done. I can always go back and put those on there. Alright, I ended up not having to take any off the washers. I did try them out, and they're fine. They're a little thicker, but not enough to matter. So everything's let's get that backspacer on there. Probably ought to put that other old washer on there, paying attention. I'm a little crazy with the oil just for the break-in of the bushings. Alright, so that'll fit just fine. Let's see, I'm going to pull that through there. Alright. I had that guy out. So, T15. I use my little get it started. Go back for these guys. let's get the, not too bad. Let's get this tightened in here. Yeah, a little tight. It'll loosen up. Brand new bushings though. I don't. Maybe a little bit right there. Sometimes you can rock it. I don't think I got the. Yeah, centering's not perfect, but it wasn't perfect on the original either. So there we go. Sans pocket clip. Here's the standard out of the box as it is rat. All right. Good knife, good EDC knife. And this is our homemade scales, homemade backspacered, modified blade with a sharpening choil, crown spine, stone washed, new thumb stud, stone washed and modified liners, and solid bronze bushings, and that's it. This is the finished product. Yeah, I like how that came out. I like how the scales came out. I like the color combo on those came out really nice. Kind of liked how that pivot screw came out, but yeah, I mean, I cannot complain. I'll have to get some longer pocket clip screws. Kind of said that in the beginning. That was going to be an issue. We are just a skosh. Well, yeah, we're about half a Guinness thick on the scales. So yeah. I do like that it does have a little bit fatter feel to it. It does carry fatter in the pocket. Yeah, I think that came out okay. And for, you know, for $25, $30 knife, you know, I mean, you can put a lot of work into it. I did go with, I shined up the scales. I want them to have, you know, I like that shiny look there. You can tell the profile here on this guy on the handle. It's got more of the lock bar exposed to get your thumb on it. I took the serrations off. I mean, they're useless. You know, you don't need them. Once once I opened that up a little bit and more room, I did take a little bit off the overall profile on that just to make it look better with the whole skinny scale, you know, look. Removing that hump. Yeah, it turned out good. I like it. It's a very it'll be a nice fun EDC, and I hope the individual I'm gifting it to is going to appreciate it. So yeah, finally done with the rat. We'll move on to something else here. Sorry it wasn't a complete success, but I kind of said that in the beginning that we were going to have to screw. We were going to have to mess around with the pocket clip screws until we got ones that were of the correct length. We kind of knew that was going to be an issue, but not a big deal. I'll order up some various length screws here. I'm fairly certain that it's a very common size, and I'll order some up off of knife kits and get it done. You may or may not see this knife again, but yeah, with how the scale videos ended up, I know this video is probably not as informative as I would have liked it to be. If there was any process during this, if there was any part of this that you would like, an in-depth video in, just let me know. I got no problems. I mean, believe it or not, even trying to come up with one or two videos a week, man, that aren't knife reviews, you know, you kind of run you kind of run out of shit to talk about pretty quick, right? So I am always open to any suggestions, man. If there's any part of this process that you guys would like to see, you know, like I said, in you know, to a greater depth, then by all means, just, you know, let me know down there in the comments, man. We'll go into it. I tell you now that I am not the greatest scale maker in the world. I did 90% of the sanding by hand and with, you know, with sandpaper and a needle file. Yeah, I need more practice on scales before I can really share any type of, you know, knowledgeable opinion. But, you know, stone washing, sharpening, that kind of thing, we can't go over that. This wasn't the first backspacer I've made. I've made a few back spacers, so that process, that was, you know, not too difficult. And I know I don't think I have any surviving footage of the back spacer being made. So if you want to see me just make a back spacer, I'll make one. I think I got one. I wanted to make one for, I got a Shaman. I wanted to get rid of that big heavy metal back spacer on it, and replace it. So I can, you know, I'll do that. I have a set of Adrenaline hardware for it, so it has just the plain Jane center spacers, so you can eliminate that big metal back spacer there, heavy metal back spacer that Spyderco gives you. And I've been wanting to make like I got some more of that the Ghost G10 somewhere. I was liking to make a back spacer for it. So if you want to just see that, then we'll do that. But by all means, if you've got something that you want to see greater in depth, just let me know, and we'll get into it, and we'll shoot a video just on that. I picked up a all titanium knife. It is a Chinese knife, and we won't talk much about the knife, but I do have a very good candidate for an anodizing video. We'll do some titanium anodizing if you guys like to see that. It's not really worth dragging out all the shit for the pocket clip, but for doing a whole knife, then yeah, we'll do that. But just, yeah, let me know down in the comments, and we'll make it happen. And yeah, we're finally mostly 98%ish done on it, and we can now move on. So I appreciate you guys coming along with me tonight. I appreciate you guys being patient on these damn rat videos. And I got them out, so yeah, I'll get this video, you know, edited up and posted up for you guys, and yeah. So this is the Regular Guy and his Regular Guy Knife channel, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your night.